Yeah, so Blake Lively is apparently, allegedly regretting her legal war against Justin Baldoni. Yeah, are we too connected? Are we too vibing? That's how she described working with Justin Baldoni.
Blake Lively is absolutely losing it after the judge used yet another piece of evidence to wreck her case. She was busy fangirling over Justin Baldoni, but since he's a man of honor and politely shut it down, Blake decided to throw a tantrum and swear revenge like a toddler.
Has no
So, Blake Lively thought 2025 was going to be her "I'm a strong woman shutting down my evil ex-boss" era, but it's quickly turning into her "please, somebody hide my public recordings" era. That's when Blake, in front of an entire room full of people and cameras by the way, decided to describe working with Baldoni as being too connected and too vibing. Yep, those were her exact words.
Too connected? Are we too vibing? That's how she described working with Justin Baldoni in June.
Apparently, the English language just packed up and left the building that day because that doesn't remotely sound like someone who's about to scream harassment in a court of law. If you're feeling harassed, you don't usually vibe with your harasser, Blake, unless you live in some alternate Hollywood reality, which, based on this meltdown, she clearly does. Speaking of alternate realities, let's talk about America Ferrera. You know, the friend who was supposedly standing tall behind Blake during this whole circus, well, until she wasn't. America posted a public show of support for Blake, only to yank it down faster than you can say career suicide.
That she had removed a post from her Instagram grid, the one where she...
Then, like the human version of an oops text, she quietly put it back up after someone, probably Blake herself, noticed and panicked. Let's be honest, America looked more spineless than a day-old plate of boiled spaghetti.
It's about America Ferrera, if she's now supporting Blake again, if it was a mistake. So I don't know what happened there, if America Ferrera got cold feet and thought, oh, Blake is going to come after me, so I better put that post back.
And she didn't even bother posting anything else afterward. If you're going to fake support, at least pretend to care with a follow-up post. But no, America dipped out like someone who realized they got tricked into promoting a sinking ship.
I don't know. I just find it kind of spineless when you support someone publicly and then you remove the support because you get a lot of backlash from it. And then you kind of sneak it back in again.
And just when you think this couldn't get more cursed, guess who decided to make a grand entrance? None other than Harvey freaking Weinstein. Because when you're fighting for your reputation, obviously the number one person you want emerging from the shadows to back you up is a convicted sex offender who made Hollywood more toxic than Chernobyl.
Weinstein came out and said that and showed support for Baldoni, saying that, you know, you and me, we were treated the same way by New York Times. It's like, no, you weren't. Harvey Weinstein was accused by, I think, like 50 to 100 women. It was so many women, and it was so serious.
In a move so tone-deaf it could break sound barriers, Weinstein compared his experience with the New York Times to Justin Baldoni's. The man actually said he related to Baldoni's legal fight. Imagine waking up, reading that headline, and realizing Harvey Weinstein thinks you're the victim. How bad does it have to be when even Harvey wants to stand next to you in court? That's not a PR crisis. That's a full-blown apocalypse.
Used by, I think, like 50 to 100 women. It was so many women, and it was so serious, like really horrific incidents that he was accused of, and he ended up in jail for it. Now he's saying that he was treated the same way by New York Times.
Court documents didn't exactly swoop in to save Blake's dignity either. They pretty much tore her claims apart and left them on the sidewalk for pigeons to peck at. There's being unprepared, and then there's whatever Blake was doing. Turns out, not only was her evidence a whole lot of nothing, but the recording she forgot existed made it even worse. It's like bringing a sword to a gunfight, only to realize the sword is made of Play-Doh. Blake genuinely expected people to rally behind her as the wronged woman battling the evil system, but fun fact, people actually saw her gush about Baldoni during the It Ends With Us event on June 14th, 2024.
Lively, Brendan Sklenar, and Colleen Hoover when they had a screening. This was in June 14th, so last summer. when they were showing It Ends With Us, a cut that wasn't even ready and that Sony hadn't greenlit or anything like
A full, very public, very recorded moment. She wasn't choking back tears about her struggle. Nope, she was practically glowing while gushing about how great their working relationship was. She didn't just vibe with him. She lived for the vibes. "We're too connected," she said, probably smiling wide enough to make Colleen Hoover's hairline recede.
really interesting.
She's conflicted. And so that was always an interesting dynamic when you have somebody who's playing the character also being the one like looking at the movie. So we were always like, are we too connected? Are we too vibing?
Yeah, are we too connected? Are we too vibe?
There was no awkward tension, no uncomfortable glances, nothing remotely resembling fear or distress, just Blake publicly broadcasting how much fun she was having. You could have sworn she was auditioning for a rom-com instead of filing harassment claims. Let's be honest, if your own public footage looks like a trailer for Best Friends Forever, maybe rethink trying to spin it into victimhood. The Blake Lively story.
Was Blake Lively talking about Justin Baldoni? She didn't mention him by name, but what she said does not sound like someone who's been harassed by someone.
America Ferrera, dear sweet America, delivered her own silent mic drop. First, she tried to erase her support when the backlash got too hot. Then, she sneakily brought it back with zero explanation or caption. And after that, crickets. Complete radio silence. It's like someone told her, "Girl, this ship's sinking faster than your career if you stay on board." And she was like, "Got it. Thanks, bye."
I don't know. She hasn't posted anything else on her Instagram since last time she had removed it. So it's not like it's been pushed in any direction, like a technical glitch, or I don't know how that could.
The public immediately caught onto America Ferrera's fake support stunt. Even Blake's A-list friends didn't want to be part of the mess. Meanwhile, Blake acted like nobody would notice, forgetting this is the internet. Her sad attempt at a cover-up was like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic while the ship was already sinking. Pure comedy. Honestly, it's kind of beautiful in a tragic Greek mythology sort of way. The more Blake tried to control the narrative, the faster it unraveled. Every single move just made her look more desperate. First, she fangirls over Baldoni on stage. Then, she cries harassment 6 months later. Then America Ferrera tries to ghost her like a bad Tinder date. Then, Harvey Weinstein shows up like a demonic Easter bunny handing out cursed eggs. If Blake was trying to make sure nobody took her seriously, she's doing a phenomenal job.
If Baldoni would win this case against New York Times, which is very unlikely apparently, that would put Harvey Weinstein's case or that article in the spotlight, and maybe they have to question.
And here's the real kicker. Despite all this, Blake still thought marching into court with her evidence was going to save the day, like some plot twist where everyone suddenly forgets she practically called Baldoni her artistic soulmate in public. I don't know if it's arrogance, denial, or just pure Hollywood brain rot, but whatever it is, it's historic. This isn't a legal strategy, it's a live-action cautionary tale. And Blake isn't just losing the court case. She's losing the court of public opinion, the court of common sense, and frankly, the court of basic human decency. When your strongest supporters are deleting their posts and Harvey Weinstein is stepping up to defend you, maybe it's time to sit down and reconsider your entire life.
And I didn't like it. So Harvey has actually given out a statement saying that watching Justin Baldoni take legal action against the New York Times and its reporters, accusing them of manipulating communications and ignoring evidence that countered Ms. Lively's claim.
Harvey Weinstein entering Blake Lively's legal drama is exactly the kind of cursed crossover nobody asked for. Imagine fighting for your dignity, and then Harvey Weinstein storms in like some twisted cheerleader. The man who turned Hollywood into a crime scene thought it'd be a good idea to publicly support Justin Baldoni, basically sending Blake the worst PR Valentine in history.
Weinstein continues, "It brought back everything I experienced when the Times reported on me in 2017. They did the same thing, cherry-picked what fit their story and ignored critical context and facts that could have challenged."
And not just any support either. Weinstein had the audacity to claim that the New York Times cherry-picked facts in both his and Baldoni's cases. Because, yeah, obviously directing a sappy romance movie is exactly the same as having over 100 women accuse you of every imaginable horror. Real casual comparison, Harvey, totally normal. He even whined about not fighting back against the Times in 2017, as if anyone cared. Nobody was sitting around thinking, you know who really deserves a second chance? Harvey Weinstein.
Sorry, I'm not buying this. This is so dumb. Like, right, Harvey Weinstein wouldn't have the courage to speak up about the twisted truth. And he continues to say, that failure still haunts me. I'll be watching this case closely. It matters to anyone who's ever been on the receiving end of a media take.
But here he was, dragging his greasy reputation back into the spotlight just to bless Blake's case with his stench. Direct quote from Weinstein's pity party. It still haunts me. What's really haunting is the fact that he thought speaking out would help anyone. If Harvey Weinstein thinks you're the victim, congratulations, you've officially lost whatever battle you were fighting. Pack it up, Blake. When the universe hands you omens that big, even the most oblivious Hollywood princess should take the hint.
I continued with this statement, and this kind of made me laugh because I think it's just like so ridiculous. He says, I should have stood up and fought back then. I should have had the courage to speak out against the way the truth was twisted. Harvey Weinstein should have had the courage to speak up.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the circus tent, Blake and Ryan Reynolds decided to launch their own PR stunt, which was about as subtle as a fire truck in a library. First, Ryan was spotted looking tense at JFK Airport, because nothing screams natural human emotion like a perfectly lit paparazzi shot of you dramatically frowning into the distance. I mean, come on. At this point, it would have been less obvious if he'd just held up a sign saying, please feel sorry for us.
Hence, he was walking through JFK, the airport in New York, looking tense and showing strain as he escapes New York City alone amid Blake Lively's increasing regret over justice.
And Blake, Blake, was out here playing the saddest little actress in the saddest little play. Parade after parade of sad Blake photos flooded the internet, her best please pity me expressions plastered on cheap tabloid covers. Experts, like actual PR strategists, immediately called it out for what it was, grief cosplay. Not real grief, not authentic emotion, cosplay, like Comic-Con, but for celebrities trying to save face in court.
A new, PR strategy, I think, to look tense and to look sad. Yeah, yesterday I reported on a story where Blake Lively, with some paparazzi shots of her looking sad, which I said then as well, that I think these photos are just, cherry-picked to make a new narrative here.
The funniest part? Nobody was buying it. You can slap on all the sad cardigans and messy buns you want, Blake. You can even let a single tear glisten under the perfect Instagram filter. But when people around you are literally laughing in the background of your staged sadness, maybe the gig is up. Random strangers chuckling while Blake stares into the distance, like she's auditioning for Les Mis? Peak comedy.
That I think these photos are just, cherry-picked to make a new narrative here now. So I don't know if she was sad. People around her were laughing, so...
Honestly, it looked less like a natural emotional breakdown and more like Operation Sympathetic Celebrity, a strategy that crashed harder than Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern career move. And that's saying something, because if you're losing public sympathy faster than a box office bomb, maybe it's time to rethink your PR plan. But no, Blake being Blake, she couldn't just bow out quietly. Instead, she doubled down. That's when she decided it was time to accuse Jed Wallace, a PR expert, of masterminding a grand social media war against her. Because obviously, when all else fails, scream conspiracy.
Yeah, so Blake Lively is apparently, allegedly regretting her legal war against Justin Baldoni.
Here's the problem. She had zero proof. Not even a fake email or a photoshopped Reddit post. Just pure Hollywood imagination. In her desperate flailing, she claimed Wallace designed and executed a social combat plan against her. Except, plot twist, Wallace's court filings exposed that lie faster than you can say embarrassing.
Days ago, I told you that sexual harassment accuser Blake Lively filed a motion to be dismissed from the lawsuit against her by Jed Wallace in
Timeline disaster alert. Online sentiment turned against Blake in July 2024, and Wallace was hired in August 2024. This means Blake's reputation was already spiraling before Wallace even signed a contract. She basically accused someone of starting the fire after the building had already burned down and sunk into the ocean.
the online social media guru that allegedly helped to manipulate public perception against her. Oh!
And Wallace didn't just shrug it off. He went on record, under penalty of perjury, stating he never posted anything, never directed anyone to post anything, never liked anything shady, never boosted anything, and didn't even sneeze in Blake's general direction online.
Theo did mention in her first amended complaint, as specifically as she could, without getting into specifics, that Wallace and his company were, quote, seeding, manipulating, and advancing disparaging content on social media platforms and internet.
Even better, he swore a social combat plan wasn't even part of the services he offered for this case, which, honestly, is hilarious. Blake got so paranoid, she invented an entire social media conspiracy in her head and tried to bring it to court like it was gospel truth.
First amended complaint only mentions that Justin Baldoni's crisis PR expert hired Mr. Wallace and Street Relations, his company, to design and implement a social combat plan.
Meanwhile, back in reality, Wallace is sitting pretty with 0 receipts, 0 actions, and a timeline that proves Blake made the whole thing up. If there's one thing Hollywood elites excel at more than acting, it's filing 141-page complaints packed with drama, but forget one tiny detail: actual evidence.
This was an allegation made on information and belief, and that this is the type of conclusory allegation based only on information and belief that are not sufficient to.
Imagine filing a complaint that thick and not having a single screenshot, email, or witness to back it up. It's not just embarrassing, it's legendary. Future law students will study this disaster as the ultimate example of what not to do when suing someone.
He was walking through JFK, the airport in New York, looking tense and showing strain as he escapes New York City alone amid Blake Lively's increasing regret.
And of course, Blake topped it all off with her signature move, pretending to be shocked when nobody bought her story. Because that's what celebrities do when their lives fall apart. They don't take accountability. They don't apologize. They just stand there, blinking under the courtroom lights, wondering why the peasants aren't sobbing on their behalf. Jed Wallace didn't just deny Blake's fantasy. He practically threw a party while doing it. And honestly, he earned it. Being dragged into a celebrity meltdown over a crime you didn't even commit must be exhausting. Blake tried to turn a PR guy into a villain because she needed a scapegoat for her own public disaster. All she got in return? Another brick wall of legal failure and public mockery.
Convicted in court by really serious allegations, and you deserve to stay in jail.
Blake Lively didn't just lose the plot. She threw it out the window, set it on fire, and tried to blame the ashes on everyone else. Her legal claims were supposed to be the smoking gun, but they ended up more like a smoke machine at a kid's birthday party. Lots of noise, 0 danger. Jed Wallace's motion to dismiss didn't just poke holes in Blake's lawsuit, it shredded it.
Sneak it back in again? I don't know. She hasn't posted anything else on her Instagram since last time she had removed.
It tore the whole thing apart like a cheap Halloween costume. Out of 482 paragraphs, yes, 482 and 5 full exhibits, you'd think Blake's team could land one accusation that actually stuck. Instead, it was 482 paragraphs of pure, unfiltered Hollywood blabber. Imagine filing what's basically a bloated Netflix script and expecting a judge to treat it seriously. Wallace and his company, Street Relations, barely even got a real mention. If this were a movie, critics wouldn't just call it overwritten. They'd say the supporting characters were so underdeveloped they made background extras in a Marvel movie look deep.
Private health information about Jed Wallace, letting the world know that he suffered a life-threatening health incident as a result of her and being served.
Honestly, calling this whole disaster Hollywood fiction was being generous. Wallace's team could have gone harder, but they probably felt bad for wasting the court's time. If your lawsuit reads like a rejected Hallmark movie script, where the small-town girl sees a guy who didn't even know there was a fight, maybe don't bring it to a real court. It's one thing to lose a PR war. It's another level of tragic to lose because your entire argument sounds like a first-year creative writing project that barely scraped a C-.
Additionally, they claim that Lively has her general allegations on his conduct all wrong. Wallace or Street, his company, did not post anything on social media on behalf of the Wade.
You'd think after filing a lawsuit thicker than a college textbook, Blake would show up with at least one solid piece of evidence. Instead, the courtroom got a parade of wishful thinking and emotional outbursts disguised as legal claims. It wasn't just sloppy, it was downright embarrassing. If Blake's legal team charged her by the paragraph, she should be demanding a refund right about now.
They are going on the record stating that Jed Wallace and his company didn't direct or ask anyone to post anything about the same.
And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, new evidence showed up like a wrecking ball aimed straight at Blake's already fragile case. Turns out footage of Blake herself gushing about how connected and vibey she felt working with Justin Baldoni is now part of the official record. You know, the same Baldoni she's accusing of making her life miserable. Nothing screams, "I'm traumatized," quite like a room full of people watching you giggle and fangirl over your so-called oppressor.
Doesn't sound like a person that has harassed her that she's describing. Like, really?
The judge didn't even have to say much, just sat there side-eyeing Blake's so-called evidence, probably wondering if he'd stumbled into an SNL skit. When your first piece of evidence is yourself looking thrilled to be working with the guy you're suing, it's not a good day in court. It's not even a court day. It's a public roast, and Blake's the main course. Then Jed Wallace came through again, dropping receipts like it was Black Friday. His do-nothing advice completely torpedoed Blake's claim that there was some grand conspiracy to destroy.
What did he do? What did he do?
Wallace didn't just deny being part of the so-called social media takedown. He proved he advised doing nothing because Baldoni was already getting natural support. Turns out Blake's whole "they sabotaged me" meltdown wasn't sabotage at all, just Reddit users roasting her for free.
They didn't publish, directly or indirectly, any information or content, negative or otherwise, regarding live.
Blake didn't get taken down by some evil PR conspiracy. She got wrecked by random teenagers online. She filed a fantasy lawsuit, got laughed out of court, and destroyed her credibility in one shot. Between the fake sadness, Weinstein's cursed endorsement, and ghosting her own friends, Blake's reputation didn't just crack. It completely disintegrated. And speaking of disasters, let's not forget the grand finale. Blake's self-inflicted legal meltdown. Because in the end, it wasn't Justin Baldoni, Jed Wallace, the Reddit trolls, or even the New York Times that nuked Blake's reputation. It was Blake with her big mouth, her even bigger ego, and her absolute refusal to read the room.
The Nepo baby fought so hard for an extra protective order in New York and that case because she was worried about her health information.
Nobody forced her to gush over Baldoni in front of a live audience. Nobody held a gun to her head and made her accuse a PR expert of crimes he wasn't even involved in. Nobody told her to parade around in sad cardigans and call it activism. Every wrong step, every bad move, every cringy, desperate PR stunt, that was all Blake. Her strategy wasn't just bad, it was pure self-sabotage with extra sprinkles. The PR team probably quit halfway through and started betting against her on the side. The lawyers must have aged 10 years trying to explain you can't just march into court waving Instagram screenshots and call it evidence. And the public? They didn't just turn on her. They laughed, scrolled, and moved on. Now, heading into March 2025, Blake's left with nothing but a looming court date, a shredded reputation, and a pile of celebrity friends pretending they've never heard of her. This upcoming trial isn't going to be a dramatic Hollywood redemption story. It's going to be a slow, brutal train wreck, and no one's going to look away. Because sometimes the villain isn't the media, the PR machines, or even your alleged enemies. Sometimes the real villain is just being Blake Lively. Her meltdown is pure entertainment. So smash that subscribe button and stay tuned. This train wreck is just getting started.